Welcome to Reconnect, the podcast dedicated to sharing and defending the good news of Jesus Christ. All religions, except Christianity, require mankind to work to overcome our greatest problem. It is in Christianity alone that we have divine redemption through the person and work of Jesus of Nazareth, who through his life, death, and resurrection defeated sin, death, and the devil forever. Reconnect us, O Lord. Chapter 1. The State of Tolerance. Having bought a supply of magazines, I was ready to board my flight to return for another year of teaching English in China. Flipping through the last American published materials I would be able to purchase for many months, I landed on a picture of the good luck charms a presidential candidate carried with him on the campaign trail. His hands cupped assorted charms, so many that I doubt they left much room in his pockets for keys or loose change, much less a smartphone. I didn't recognize what all the charms were or what they each represented, but at least two of them were of religious origin, one derived from Christianity and another from Hinduism. I smirked. This guy was good. Instead of polarizing himself, limiting his appeal to one ethnic group, religion, or cause by keeping just one good luck charm in his pocket, he was able to nab members of multiple backgrounds with one photo of his eclectic collection. His choices were also obscure enough that many people wouldn't even recognize the affiliation of a particular charm unless they were adherents themselves, protecting some of the conflicting symbols from potential scrutiny. I didn't follow much of the presidential campaign while living in China, but from my limited perspective overseas, the charm-toting candidate was running on a platform of diversity, peace, and tolerance, which appeared to be bolstered by iconic posters of himself with one-word slogans such as hope or change. I found one of his campaign speeches online, and it was essentially a litany of divisions in social class, ethnicity, geographic location, political affiliation, and religious practice. The punchline was that, despite these differences, we were all Americans. In my mind, he was the coexist candidate, and it was refreshing to hear his words urging unity and peace within our American borders and abroad. I didn't vote in that election, but all my Chinese students loved the outcome, as did all of my expatriate friends from Europe. The charm-carrying candidate won the election, and in 2008, President Barack Obama maintained the diversity platform on his way into the Oval Office, declaring in his inaugural speech, "We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, Jews and Hindus and non-believers. We are shaped by every language and culture, drawn from every end of this earth, and because we have tasted the bitter swill of civil war and segregation, and emerged from that dark chapter stronger and more united, we cannot help but believe that the old hatreds shall someday pass, that the lines of tribe shall soon dissolve, that as the world grows smaller, our common humanity shall reveal itself, and that America must play its role in ushering in a new era of peace." These emotionally persuasive words are delivered with passion. Really, who wouldn't want all the differences in the world to dissolve away into peaceful harmony? What exactly would have to happen for the lines of tribe to dissolve among the religions named by President Obama? Tolerance and coexistence. Diversity, respect, tolerance, coexistence. Before President Obama ran for office, these words began to make some noise as we entered into the 21st century. I remember the first time I saw a coexist bumper sticker around 2004 in Irvine, California. Coexist was spelled using symbols from various belief systems. A crescent moon for the C, a peace symbol for the O, male-female symbols were integrated into the E, the Star of David for the X, a Wiccan pentagram for the dot of the I, a yin-yang symbol for the S, and a cross for the T. I was mystified. I thought it was ingenious. I had never seen so many religions standing side by side to form a single word. But what really floored me was the message itself. When these bumper stickers first hit the scene, America was at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. We had an openly Christian president who commonly used religious rhetoric when discussing the war on terrorism, and it couldn't be ignored that the men who hijacked the planes on September 11th were Muslim. Some saw the necessity to clarify that the hijackers were radical Muslims, But even the addition of that distinction didn't take away from the fact that America was attacked by Muslims on domestic soil, that American soldiers were fighting against Al-Qaeda, a Muslim terrorist organization. In such a context, coexist, spelled with religious symbols, had a significant implication. As humans, we ought to agree with its call for peace. After all, are we not better than the animals? As humans, we have the ability to strive to live together in peace without hating each other or killing each other over differences in race, culture, sexual orientation, politics, or even religion. Trailing the coexist adhesive in popularity is the tolerance bumper sticker. Tolerance is at the heart of successful coexistence. By definition, the word implies that there are differences within the world's religions, and that the tensions caused by these differences must be resolved through practicing tolerance. This should not be construed as agreement, as some might interpret it. Tolerance is not agreement, but a state of allowance. We must first recognize that individuals have the freedom of religious choice and expression. From there, the necessity to tolerate conflicting religious beliefs must exist if the preservation of human liberties is to continue. If we cannot muster the will to tolerate opposing beliefs, we resort to weeding out any belief other than our own. In the process, we kill all freedom of religious expression. The coexistence and tolerance movements must be applauded for their calls for peace, but numerous people derive another message from these stickers. I have spent 3 years talking with students about their views on these two stickers at the University of California, Irvine, UCI, in the campus's freedom of speech zone. I have learned that many students think these stickers also imply that all religions are the same at their core, or that all religions lead to God. I have also learned that many students agree with this view and care enough to spend hours debating this position with me, even though I am a complete stranger to them. I have to admit to them that the idea that all religions are the same is a good sentiment. If it's true, there is no reason why we can't all get along. If all religions lead to the same positive outcome, we'd be able to move beyond simply tolerating religious differences to an arms wide open embrace of all faiths. Such an open acceptance can only be possible for someone who hasn't taken the time to study the world's religions. The shortest studies of the sacred texts of just a few different religions would reveal contradictions in their fundamental teachings. If you want to see these fundamental teachings and the contradictions that arise from them, skip ahead to chapters 2 and 3. Social pluralism versus literal pluralism. Defining pluralism can be a challenge. It comes in all shapes and sizes. There are many different definitions available, and there are varying perspectives on what each definition actually means. Pluralism can refer to multiculturalism, the holding of numerous offices at once, dualism, and monism. Dualism is the idea that everything is either material or mental, physical or spiritual. One form of monism declares that everything consists of the same substance. Monism can also be a denial of dualism, the idea that there is no distinction between an object and the thoughts that perceive the object. As you can see, pluralism can't be easily pinned, but it can be broken into two camps. Pluralism can mean diversity, or it can mean that there are no differences at all. All is one and one is all. I refer to these two camps as social pluralism and literal pluralism. Social pluralism is a term I use to describe diversity in society. The diversity can be miniature or grand in size and in scope. Social pluralism can be observed at local, regional, national, continental, hemispherical, and global levels. Social pluralism can refer to the coexistence of multiple races, languages, political views, religious beliefs, or any number of categorical classifications. If two distinctions are made in any categorical classification, social pluralism is present. Therefore, social pluralism is alive and well, and it can't be avoided. Nowhere in America is without social pluralism. Not red Republican states, blue Democratic states, not the wild of Alaska, or even the southern Bible Belt. Despite the United States being called the melting pot of the world, differences still remain, and they always will. Even in communist countries like the People's Republic of China or Islamic states like Iran, eradication of all differences cannot truly be achieved. Metaphysical pluralism is a term I use to describe the view that everything is one, or true, despite apparent distinctions. I also like to call this view literal pluralism, because in conversation, I would ask a person, when you say tolerance, are you advocating for social tolerance of the diverse races, languages, and cultures present in society? Or do you literally believe that everything is one and the same? The interpretation of oneness isn't always the same either. Literal pluralism can be divided into two camps. All is one, or all leads to one. In the discussion of religion, all is one means that all religions are the same. They all contain the same truth. All leads to one recognizes that each religion has different teachings and that they are all not the same. Yet, this camp of literal pluralism holds that all religions are spiritual paths leading to the same destination. So in the end, everything eventually is one. For the remainder of this book, when I mention pluralism, I am referring to literal pluralism, and I will only make a distinction between the two camps of literal pluralism if it is necessary. The spread and rise of pluralism. Pluralism might be new in the West, but it is very old hat in the East. The oneness of reality is found in Hinduism, a religion whose origins date back as far as Judaism's beginning. The explanation for universal oneness is found in the Rig Veda, Hinduism's oldest collection of priestly chants. The Rig at one time claims that no one can know from where or how the universe began. Rig Veda 10:129. Yet it still offers an explanation for our origins. Everything results from the sacrifice of the cosmic man, Purusha. Rig Veda 10:90. It is from Purusha's sacrificial body that everything that has been, or whatever is to be, is derived. Since everything consists of this one divine source, everything is at the core the same. In Hinduism, all are one, and one is all. It is hard to pinpoint an exact moment that the monism, all is one, of Hinduism took root in the West. The sowing of the seeds began with the Transcendentalism movement in the middle of the 19th century. Writers Ralph Waldo Emerson, David Henry Thoreau, and Walt Whitman were all prominent figures of this movement, and today are required reading in many American schools. I read excerpts from all three of these writers in high school. Thoreau's Walden stood out to me the most because I was inspired by his experiment to live in the woods by Walden Pond for 2 years. I was enticed by the call to adventure. I'd rather be in the woods than in the classroom. Walden was also an invitation to be one with nature. This summons can be found in Hinduism through its teaching of seeking union with the divine at the heart of all things. All are one, nature, animals, and humans. Thoreau bears Hinduism's influence within the pages of Walden. In the morning I bathe my intellect in the stupendous cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, Hindu text, since whose composition years of the gods have elapsed, and in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. And I doubt if that philosophy is not to be referred to a previous state of existence. So remote is its sublimity from our conceptions. I lay down the book and go to my well for water, and lo, there I meet the servant of the Brahman, priest of Brahma and Vishnu and Indra, Hindu gods, which still sits in his temple on the Ganges, the sacred river in India in which Hindus regularly bathe in ritual cleansing rites, reading the Vedas, 4 collections of Hindu priestly chants, or dwells at the root of a tree with his crust and water jug. I meet his servant come to draw water for his master, and our buckets, as it were, grate together in the same well. The pure Walden water is mingled with the sacred water of the Ganges. Ralph Waldo Emerson also scattered many seeds of pluralism. Some of the clearest can be seen in his essay, The Oversoul. In this essay, Emerson observes that we are many parts and particles, and that we see the world in pieces. We make classifications and labels. That's the sun, that's the moon, that's an animal, that's a plant, and so on. but the whole of these is the soul. Emerson says that within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every particle is equally related, the eternal one. Emerson adds that this nature appearing in us all is not social, it is impersonal, is God. To receive a revelation from this soul, Emerson explains that one must greatly listen to himself, withdrawing from all accents of other men's devotion, because the highest dwells with him, that the sources of nature are in his own mind. Though Emerson does not make any direct references to Hinduism in the Oversoul, his teaching that the whole of all is the one eternal soul syncs with Hinduism's teaching that there is one eternal essence to all things. Emerson and Hinduism both express this divine nature as being impersonal. Emerson insists that to hear divine revelation, one must only connect with the divine within oneself, which is also the striving goal of Hinduism, to become one with the divine, to no longer live in the illusion of the division. Walt Whitman referred to Emerson with the title Master, hints at similar pluralistic ideals in his poem Song to Myself, saying in the opening lines, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. As to the divine, in the same poem, Whitman said, I hear and behold God in every object. These three authors alone did not establish pluralism in the West, or more specifically America, since they were American writers, but they tilled the soil and planted the seeds, as did other members of the Transcendental movement. These quotations from over 100 years ago show that pluralism hasn't appeared overnight. Through mandatory reading and educational systems, such works have been ingrained across generations of Americans, even if the religious and philosophical implications of such works are not directly taught in the classrooms. At the very least, these words that come from such authors and their works have a stamp of authority due to their placement as required reading. I want to close this discussion of the origin of Eastern philosophy's seed migration to the West with the words of John Muir, father of America's national park system, that reflect almost identically the words shared by pluralists and New Agers today. We all flow from one fountain soul. All are expressions of one love. God does not appear and flow out only from narrow chinks and round-bored wells here and there in favored races and places, but he flows in grand, undivided currents, shoreless and boundless, over creeds and forms and all kinds of civilizations and peoples and beasts, saturating all and fountainizing all. The watering of the transcendental seeds came in 1893 in Chicago. It was the first meeting of the World's Parliament of Religions and is recognized as the first formal interfaith meeting of Eastern and Western religious leaders. It was here that Swami Vivekananda, a Hindu, delivered a series of addresses introducing America to Hinduism. His salutation, Brothers and Sisters of America, he commenced his first address that proclaimed, I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. More decades of watering passed, and the seeds of the Transcendental movement finally came to fruition in the 1960s. The countercultural movement sprang up in opposition to the Vietnam War and the draft that accompanied it. The movement included hundreds of thousands of youth questioning why they and their friends and families should risk and possibly lose their lives in a war that they couldn't justify. If drafted, their options were simple: go to jail, go to Canada, or fight Charlie. Beyond the anti-war sentiment within the youth culture of the 60s, the American government and the broader authorities of society came to be seen as oppressors of women and black Americans. Questions were raised, such as, why were women kept from voting for so long? Why did so many have to struggle as part of the women's suffrage movement? Why are women still struggling to have workplace equality with men? With the civil rights movement still looming large, the youth of the nation had to ask, just how free are we as Americans? What should we be fighting for Who should we be fighting against? The Transcendentalists sought reprieve from authority and societal problems through alternative lifestyles, such as Thoreau's seclusion in the woods or Emerson's and Whitman's praise of individualistic and humanistic ideals. The countercultural movement took a similar approach. They shared belongings and food, bypassing the system of capitalism that set America apart from communist Vietnam. Customary standards in dress and hairstyles were cast to the wind. A bigger shift from traditional values came from the movement's rejection of the institution of marriage, opting instead for free love. The use of marijuana and LSD also marked the movement. Sexual promiscuity and illegal drug use were great ways to undermine both governmental and religious institutions. Ethical values were now based upon one's subjectivity and not on time-honored authority and tradition. The blossom of the countercultural movement came as the 60s drew to an end. The Woodstock Music Festival, 3 days of peace and music, attracted 300,000 to 500,000 youth, with estimates varying so widely because the fence around the festival grounds was torn down. Tickets could not be collected, and while many unticketed people were in attendance, many who did have tickets never made it to the festival because the New York State Thruway was shut down due to the unprecedented traffic. What is usually forgotten about Woodstock is that it was originally billed as an aquarium exposition. The Aquarius Age is linked with astrology, and for many members of the countercultural movement, its genesis was marked by their generation's arrival. This age was seen to be ushering in a new system, out with the old and in with the new. And what exactly was new about the Aquarian Exposition seen by many as a defining moment, not only for rock music, but a generation? Hinduism. Swami Satchidananda opened the festival with an address. In it, he said, "America is becoming a whole. America is helping everybody in the material field. But the time has come for America to help the whole world with spirituality, too. And that's why, from the length and breadth, we see people, thousands of people, yoga-minded, spiritual-minded." In an exhortation to the festival goers, Swami Satchidananda delivered the following words: "So let all our actions and all our arts express yoga. Through that sacred art of music, let us find peace that will pervade all over the globe." He also shared that here the East has come into the West. And he closes his address, blessing and leading the festival attendees in a Hindu chant of Hari Om and Ram. John Morris, the head of production for Woodstock, referred to Swami Satchidananda's Woodstock address as a blessing. It was like an invocation or whatever. The embrace of Hinduism at Woodstock rolled on through the festival with yoga led from the stage as a time filler while bands arrived and set up for their sets. Like most aspects of pluralism, words and practices were removed from their original context and application and cast into an eclectic conglomeration to meet the purpose and desires of any individual. Calling Swami Satchidananda's opening address an invocation doesn't mean the rest of what transpired at Woodstock was Hindu-related, as one would expect to be Christ-related after an invocation at a Roman Catholic Mass. For example, the yoga at Woodstock was far removed from a spiritual path to oneness with Brahman. The practice was presented as just another way to get high. As the countercultural movement faded and the hippies got their hair cut, found 9-to-5 jobs, married, and had kids, the age of Aquarius and its New Age musings weren't laid to rest as easily. The New Age movement has no single founder or central figure, authoritative text, official doctrine, or organizational structure. The same can be said for Hinduism. New Age is a term that is applied to an incredibly diverse group of people who, individually and in some cases collectively, practice and adhere to assorted spiritual disciplines such as connecting to past lives and lovers, communication with spirits or angels, astrology, tarot card reading, meditation, yoga, astral projection, interpreting dreams, using crystals for healing, mind reading, palm reading, magic, and witchcraft. Though a New Ager might not practice all of these or even any of these disciplines in their spirituality, New Agers commonly share beliefs in an impersonal, divine energy or force that is in all things. They believe that when we die, we will be reincarnated, that everything is united, and that all religions are one. What's ironic about the New Age movement is that there isn't much new within it. Reincarnation is a central tenet of many of the longest-standing religions of the East. I've already mentioned that Hinduism teaches the unity of all, as does much of Eastern philosophy and mysticism. Astrology used to guide the fate of nations, empires, and people long before it was used in modern horoscopes to help a person know who to date and when to sell their stocks. The magic arts, divination, and various forms of communication via mediums have long been staples of occultism. What's new about New Age beliefs is the popularity that these practices now have in the West. In most large bookstores like Barnes & Noble, the New Age section and all that comes with it, including such popular topics as UFOs, the Mayan calendar, which isn't so popular now that 2013 has rolled around, and even vampirism, is as big or bigger than the Christian section. It definitely dwarfs other religions that have been one or two shelves each in most cases. With its pluralistic beliefs, the New Age movement has no boundaries. It's now common for someone to say that they are a blend of religions, claiming to be a Christian Buddhist, for example, or for a person to just claim to be spiritual while forming his or her own mixed bag of religious practices and beliefs. Another tendency is for a person to claim adherence to one specific religion, but actually hold New Age beliefs or simply be syncretistic. A poll by the Pew Research Center's Forum on Religion and Public Life, released in 2009, reveals that this is happening even within the incredibly exclusive religion Christianity. According to the poll, large percentages of American Christians mix New Age practices with their Christianity. 29% say they have been in touch with the dead. 23% believe there are spiritual energies in trees. 23% believe in reincarnation, and 14% have consulted a psychic. Ask if Christians and Muslims pray to the same God, and a class in a Christian private high school will be torn over the answer. Neither will gain any ground in swaying the other position in the ensuing debate. I know because I have seen it happen firsthand on 2 different occasions. Of course, there's actually a third position present, one of ambivalence, which is another product of pluralism. Even former President George W. Bush, who was always very vocal about his Christian faith, said that Christians and Muslims pray to the same God. Bush went an extra step into pluralism by moving outside of the Abrahamic religions, saying that those of any religion pray to the same God. The heart of pluralism. The 60s counterculture movement that questioned absolute truth and morality and the objectivity for measuring such standards did so because its members saw that people were being killed over differences that weren't directly affecting them in their personal freedoms. Different forms of government cause war. Cultural clashes lead to hatred. Racial differences bring oppression. The physically stronger sex suppresses the weaker sex. And religions. Well, I think we know the problems that arise from the interaction of diverse faiths vying for the ultimate authority on the most important questions of life, death, and the afterlife. The slogan that summed up the counterculture movement was "Make love, not war." And this is the heart behind modern-day pluralism. Love. Those who imply pluralism when they use the words tolerance and coexistence are doing so from a correct heart position. From their standpoint, the often hateful reaction that intolerance offers in response to diversity is the root of humanity's self-inflicted pain and suffering. If we could only love one another, we could heal the world. If we could just get to that point where we recognize that we are all brothers and sisters, we could make the world a better place for ourselves and future generations. Love covers a multitude of sins. Love trumps all ideologies, philosophies, and religions. If some refuse to hop aboard the love pluralism train because they are still elevating their beliefs above love, then all we have to do is convince them that the world's competing truth claims are actually, at their core, the same. Differences are only apparent. All religions can be boiled down to one common denominator. That one common denominator is love. Love is all we need, and that is the heart behind pluralism. Losing truth and love in pluralism. Even if sincere love and conviction undergird the principles of pluralism, sincerity does not create truth. When I was young, I sincerely believed in the existence of a gift-giving Santa Claus who traveled the world with his flying reindeer on the eve of the celebration of Jesus' birth. It is quite possible to be sincere and still be wrong. To the pluralist, discussions of what is true and what is false aren't necessary, because as Swami Vivekananda said, all religions are true. In pluralism, absolute truth is beyond our capacity to discern. Truth becomes relative. This relativism has brought about a rejection of objective truth based on logic, reason, science, and the existence of a transcendent personal God. The resulting vacuum has been filled with individual experience, feelings, and cultural background. These now serve as the guideposts for each person's unique, subjective conclusions on the nature of reality, which is ever in flux. Since I cannot have the same experiences as someone else, what's true for me may not be true for you, but neither of us is wrong. Pluralism is the zeitgeist, the spirit of our age, that strives for unification, hope, peace, and change. The sacrifice for such progress is to jettison truth, a small price to pay for peace. But is it? When truth becomes relative, the foundations of society are upended, and humanity is placed on a slippery slope. If all truth is relative, words lose their meaning in a myriad of equally valid interpretations. Where can we draw the line on issues of morality, history, and interpreting literature? A former student of mine wrote an opinion column in our school newspaper in which he shared what he had learned from watching annual marathons of the 1960s Twilight Zone television show. The Sci-Fi Channel reruns them every New Year's Day. He wrote, "The moral ambiguity of the characters and the situations in the Twilight Zone led me to understand that there are two sides to every coin. And issues of ethics never exist in a black and white world." I am pretty certain that this student doesn't truly believe that there are never any black and white issues in the realm of ethics. But for many born in the 1990s and 2000s, the gray areas of morality are rapidly expanding. This is largely because many of them have been exposed to postmodern thinking, with its denial of an objective standard on which to base their moral judgments. If my black is your white, and we are both equally authoritative with no higher standard, we find ourselves in a very precarious moral dilemma. When I meet individuals who truly profess that none of us can judge what is right and wrong for another person, I love to question them about the extremes of morality. If all truth is relative, can we say Hitler was wrong in the murder of 6 million Jews? If the person holds his ground and says no, I bring it closer to home and speak of killing his family members or his pets, since some people cherish their pets more than their next of kin. Even this scenario isn't foolproof in bringing a person to acknowledge the need for an objective standard of morality. Once, I spoke with a female student at the University of California, Irvine, who was so adamant about not being able to judge others' actions that she wouldn't even say a person would be wrong if he raped her. In most cases, relative moralists start to backpedal and form lines dividing black and white, when the correct levers are pulled. When they make such judgments, I then press them on what grounds they can form their decisions. All they can usually offer is their personal feelings and experiences, but feelings and experiences can never serve as universal objective standards. After such conversations, I am grateful that the law doesn't function on subjective terms. The words that make up the laws of the land have concrete meanings. At the end of the day, if there are contradictory interpretations of the meaning of a law or contractual agreement, both cannot be allowed to stand. Juries must give one verdict and one verdict only. My faith, even in the objectivity of the law, is waning, since I recently read a news report that in the UK, a 14-year-old male raped a 5-year-old he was babysitting. He was spared a custodial sentence because the judge ruled that it was the fault of society due to the teen's exposure to pornography. Society received judgment, not the boy's actions. According to his cultural exposure, he couldn't receive blame. Judgment was still dealt by the law in this case, but it wasn't dealt in accordance with the letter of the law. Judgment was based upon the boy's life experiences and the judge's opinion. If the boy hadn't been exposed to pornography and had more parental supervision, then I assume the judge would have found him to be at fault, and the teenager would have received a custodial sentence. As judges open the doors to question even the meaning of the words of the laws already on the books, the road ahead looks bleak. For the pluralist, however, it's sunny days ahead because for them, their guiding compasses are their emotions. Happiness becomes the source and norm of life's conundrums. Unless, of course, the euphoria wears off and never returns, no matter how many times you remarry, change jobs, or incorporate new self-help fads or spiritual practices. It is possible to become so directionless, chasing the winds of an ever-changing reality, that you can get lost in your own subjectivity. What's true for you may not even be discernible anymore. Finding truth through contradictions. Unification and truth cannot always coincide. When unification is forced, truth is lost. I believe that this chapter has shown that. Even love becomes subjective to relativism. As long as the goal of literal pluralism is to bring about social pluralism, then the heart is in the right place, but the mind isn't. When people claim that all religions are the same or that all religions lead to God, they either haven't taken the time to study the world's religions, or they in fact are being intolerant by only embracing pluralistic religions. They reject all religions that assert exclusive truth claims, such as Jesus' claim in John 14:6 to be the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to God. Such a claim contradicts the claims of all other religions to the point that if Christianity is true, then all other religions must be false. The goal of this book is to evaluate the claims of religious pluralism in light of such apparent contradictions and to raise the level of true tolerance toward the world's religions by upholding and proclaiming what makes each religion unique and special to its adherents. If this can be accomplished, it swings wide the gates of interreligious dialogue among orthodox practitioners of contradicting world views. The end goal is to usher in the evaluation of religious truth claims. Are any of them true? With what each religion claims about the purposes of life and the future of an individual after death, this is the most important question a person can ask for the here and now and for his or her eternal future.
The following is an excerpt from the Gospel Coalition's review of Andy Rasman's book, Contradict, They Can't All Be True. Quote, Contradict will help a lot of conversations get started. Rasman provides Christian believers with a great starting point for understanding and evaluating many of the world's religions. He should be commended for writing a substantive apologetic book that's also practical on so many levels. The strongest sections are where he offers a concise guide on interacting with skeptics and other religious adherents. Many readers will find Rasman's section on the 20 facts on the 5 major world religions and 20 questions that are most commonly asked when sharing the Contradict message invaluable. This is a solid book, apologetically, theologically, and practically. I pray it will open the eyes of many believers to the importance of evangelizing in a pluralistic age. Unquote. To financially support Reconnect, visit contradictmovement.org and order your copy of Contradict, They Can't All Be True. Contradict stickers and tracks are also available. Again, that's contradictmovement.org. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, share this episode on all of your social media sites and with your email contacts, people who will benefit from listening to the show. Thank you for listening. Reconnect us, O Lord.